I think everyone should just pass that off as gospel and be like, did you know that Jacques Pic was named by some people that do medieval French history and they named it after every man?
And you can impress people that way and say, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." And
Really?
then you
Wow.
can follow that up with, and it is okay to talk about the gores. It's not
Yeah.
like against the law or anything.
Yeah. Put all the trip reports out there. I don't care.
Welcome to the Greens and Blues 14er podcast. This episode, Zach talks way too much about mosquitoes. I get chased by the gore police, and we talk about the most underrated peaks in Colorado. Well, good afternoon, Z. How are you doing this fine day?
Oh, Eric, I was telling you before we started recording here, it's summer in Oklahoma. And for those of you listening in drier climates,
It's a
that
loaded statement, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, dry these, yeah, really dry these days. But for those of you listening in those climates, you may be or may not be familiar with these things we call mosquitoes here. But
I think you have different species over
oh my God. Well, they're the traditional Anopheles mosquitoes, but dang, it's been wet here pretty much the whole month of June. We've had just enough rain for them to kind of get going. I've got some tomato plants and I was out this morning just harvesting tomatoes. I am donating blood right now. Like it is unreal. Like I was like,
there.
and you get into that self dialogue where I'm like out there and I've got my little thing that I'm putting my tomatoes in. It's like a colander that I just throw them in. And I look down and there's at least five mosquitoes on my right leg. And I actually swell up a little
Oh,
bit when I get bit. And
dang.
so like I can feel my body getting warm when they do that. And I'm like, I kill a couple like there's a couple juicy ones on there that had taken some out of me.
Yep.
And and then I have this self dialogue. I'm like, you idiot, why didn't you put on bug spray before you got out here? And I'm like, because I don't want to live with DEET on me, 24/7, but that's really what it requires. So if anyone knows of like a mechanism that's not poisonous to get rid of mosquitoes, I am open to suggestions right now. This is they're like, "Oh, get rid of standing water." Man, like there is no standing water. Like I don't have that stuff. It's just they need like a thimble, just a little pocket of water in the soil is all they need. They are kicking butt. So that is one thing that's going on in my world. And then to go with that, here's the juxtaposition that I live with. I get on Facebook or on 14ers.com and I see people posting their hikes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I just did Capitol Peak or I just did the Creststones. I just went to Chicago Basin and I'm like, yeah, I just got bit by 47 mosquitoes. Like,
My gosh.
what am I doing
Uh,
here? So, yeah, I'm feeling it some of these days here, Eric. It's hard being me. It's really hard, I tell you.
Is there ever a season where you don't, like in January, are they gone? Do they go dormant
Yeah.
completely?
Yeah, they
Okay, so you get a break at some point.
oh, totally.
Okay.
Somewhere around October, they start to kind of fade out. We get a first freeze always in like beginning mid-November, and then they're done.
Sure. Okay.
And then they really don't come back in earnest until about late May, early June. Oklahoma has other than the tornadoes that want to kill you, Oklahoma has a glorious spring. And so I just generally don't get eaten by them. But we're in the stretch now where I have to be outside certain times of the day to do yard work, harvest tomatoes, etc. But there's also a lot of mosquitoes. So yeah, we do get a reprieve. This is like a tangent, but I hear people complain about the mosquitoes and like the stingrays sometimes. They're like, the mosquitoes are so bad near Willow Lake. And I'm like, you need to shut your dirty mouth because you have no idea. There's only
Oh
been one
gosh.
only been one time
Uh,
I've like actually been annoyed by mosquitoes in Colorado, and it was with you. We were at gosh,
well,
which
it was in the Sangres, right? It
was in the
was
Sangres. I don't know if it
oh,
was
I remember.
Cottonwood Creek or Garner Creek. It was on the west side of the Sangres, and you and I
Yes.
wanted to camp out. We like started to set up the tent and like it was just swarms of
Getting
them.
eaten alive. There was a
And we were
12er nearby, I think we were going after, and
it was a 13er that we didn't go up. I
it
can
was a
tell you that.
13. Okay, I know
Yeah.
I didn't make it up there because I
No.
wasn't having it, but
We hiked 10 miles in and still didn't get anywhere. But yeah, I remember like being like, I'm not setting up the tent in this, and we just like bailed and like ran into and we sat in the car for like 2.5 hours, and then we waited till it got super windy. And when it got super windy, we're like, now's the time
now's the time. That's
let's
right.
let's put up the tent. And then here's another bug moment from that trip. We get up that morning. So we actually sleep nice because it's windy and it keeps the bugs off of us. We get up
Mhm.
that morning. We're just about to get on the trail and we're signing the trail register. And I got stung by a couple yellow jackets that were inside the
Oh,
wilderness
that's
register.
right. I
Yeah.
forgot about that. Oh my God. Well, you didn't forget about it, but
I remember
oh.
hiking and being like, that didn't hurt. And then looking at my hand and it's all swollen. And I was like, oh, I guess it did.
Must
Um,
have hurt.
yeah. Well, mosquitoes took us to
Wow.
a fun place, and we didn't summit that day. I remember we had done Casco the previous day, and then
That's
we went
right.
there,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
we hiked like 22 miles that day, and had nothing to show for other than a really good lunch spot. So
Yeah, that meadow was really cool, but otherwise, yeah,
otherwise,
no,
that was a lot of hiking.
no peak.
So
Oh my
enough of
gosh.
me. How are you today, Eric?
I'm good. Yeah, our family's getting ready for a trip to Iowa very soon to go see our niece get married, which is really cool. So it's going to be a little muggier there than it is
Hmm.
here. So I don't think the mosquitoes are going to be quite as bad there as what you just described, Zach. But if I have any issues, I will let you know. And growing up in Michigan, we had plenty of mosquitoes, plenty of flies and stuff like that. But when you live in Colorado for a decade and a half, you kind of lose your thick skin towards it, I think. So I might need another training course
The
in
higher
mosquito.
percentage DEET, the better. I found the 40% mix is about right. Are you guys flying or driving to lovely Iowa?
We're gonna drive. We're gonna break it up a little bit and stop on the way and on the way back in good old Omaha, Nebraska. So we're gonna have some fun there.
Yes. Reminds me of that Counting Crows song. I don't know. Is it called Omaha?
Oh, it is. Yeah, you
Oh,
got it.
I mean,
That's a good one.
in the heart of everything that what's you know all the Counting Crows lyrics, Eric.
Yeah,
What's the
in the
lyric
heart,
there?
in the heart that, no, wait. Getting right to the heart of matters. It's the heart that matters more.
That's the stuff. Good album.
It's
Everybody
a
should go
great
listen.
album.
Just not a bad song on the whole thing, other than ironically, Mr. Jones on radio in 1995.
Uh,
So, well, that sounds like a fun trip. You're
it'll
going
be
in the
fun.
wrong direction, but
Yeah, but we're coming back though.
yeah, yeah, then you'll be going in the right direction.
That's right. So,
So, what are we talking about today, Eric?
well, Zach, we've talked about this a little bit, trying to figure out what are some underrated Colorado peaks. And I think we could probably define underrated in a few different ways. When you think underrated, Zach, what kind of comes to mind for you? What kind of criteria did you start with?
Well, see, that's the problem, Eric. You had this great idea, and you were like, "Let's do underrated peaks," and I was like, that's a brilliant idea. Let's run with it." And then I sat down and I started thinking, and I thought, well, who's rating these peaks
Yeah,
as like, and so I just moved to peaks that are generally either disregarded or people make fun of them. One of
yeah,
mine will
yep.
be a peak that people make fun of or that they kind of discredit. There's no official like rating of peaks. It's like peak number 1 is North Maroon and
Right.
peak number 53 is Pikes Peak or anything like looking at you, Pikes Peak. But
Right.
um, there's nothing like that, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going with this general feel on forums, Facebook. There's the ones that people are like holding out for that are the gyms. They're like, handies
Yeah. Yep.
or like the Maroon Bells or peaks like that people are like those are special. We're trying to think of the opposite of special here. And yet maybe not the opposite of special because I went through the list of peaks that I think are disregarded, hated otherwise, and then I thought, which of these do I like a lot? And I came up actually I like all of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you got into this, how did you think about it, Eric? What was your process?
Yeah, I think you nailed at least part of it from my perspective. You mentioned ones that get kind of crapped on, which there were a couple in my list that I think do get crapped on, and they actually you thought of them too. So I think your focus sounds like it's going to be kind of on the 14ers. I'm going to focus kind of more on the 13ers. When it comes to 13ers, like no one really craps on 13ers because no one really does 13ers, or at least
Yeah.
they're underrated in terms of anyone even hiking them. So I think there are some that are more well regarded than others, but the ones that I'm going to focus on are very few people, if any, that I've encountered even talk about. No one posts about them really. No one talks about them, but I had a good experience on them. So
It's like the statement, I don't hate that person, I nothing them. It's like some of these peaks are nothing.
they're basically nothing to most people. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like they don't even exist in their mind. I've got a few of those. I decided to go the 14. Usually I'm the 13er guy, but I decided to go full 14er for today's episode because I think that more of those are in the rated, underrated part. Maybe we get to do a companion episode to this in a few months called the most overrated peaks.
Ooh, I like that
That's
idea.
that's where we get to bring out a little bit of hate, a little bit of our shadow self, and throw a little scorn on some peaks that are like, yeah, you know who I'm talking about, Mount Elbert. You're you may be the tallest, but we all know you're not the best. So,
Oh, love it.
so Eric, do you want to start us off? You have a few more than I do, and you've actually got some. You had so many. You've got some honorable mentions that we could go into today.
I do have a couple honorable mentions only because in my list at least, the San Juans and the Sangres were sorely underrepresented. So I thought, you know what, I got to throw some love that way. And I know you've got a San Juan 14er coming up too, which I think is cool. I got to throw some love to Half Peak, which you and I hiked 2025, and we did a whole episode on it, episode number 48. We
Mm-hmm.
dedicated to our entire hike of Half Peak. Kind of got to be in shape for that one, but I think that the rewards are worth all of the effort for that one. So I liked Half Peak. And then we just talked about a couple episodes ago, West Spanish Peak.
Yeah.
I almost put it in my list, but I thought, we just talked about it, so I can't talk about it again. But that one, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, much less effort and still a lot of gain out of it. So those are my two honorable mentions out of there. Do you have any honorable mentions or anything you want to bring up that we aren't necessarily going to focus on for the bulk of our episode?
I mean, we could say pretty much any 13er in the San Juans is a underrated peak. There's so many great peaks there. I love the
Mm,
half peak pole. Just that, I'm going to kind of do this a few times this episode. That area around Half Peak, around the old
yes,
town site of Carson, going up towards Cataract Gulch and
mhm,
that area, that
maybe.
approach going up towards Half Peak, that valley that you eventually you kind of come out of the trees and that long stretching green valley. There's a bunch of those in that area.
Yep.
And that's just a fantastic spot. It does not get enough love. The next drainage over, the cataract drainage, is great in that regard too. There's the Wiminooch, there's Highland Mary Lakes, which is kind of outside of Silverton. That's a fabulous area with some 13ers around it. But yeah, Half Peak's a great one and a Centennial. So
And
for
a
those
Centennial.
that are chasing some numbers there, that's a great peak to do too. So I wholeheartedly endorse that. I kind of kept my list lean here, Eric. So I think you should jump into now. We've done your honorable mentions. Let's hear your first most underrated peak.
And so mine are all 13ers. They're actually all in a similar kind of area.
Mm,
And my number three, so I'm going to start this with a question, Zach. Normally, you're the one that's asking questions, right? Being the philosophy professor, that's kind of your motif, right? Am I
so,
stealing your thunder?
Socratically asking questions that you already know the answers to. Yes, that's
I,
what I do.
I love it. By the way, Socratically, complete side tangent. we watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure this past
So
weekend.
great.
So great and Beethoven. That's
Yes.
so good.
Oh, that's so good. Oh man, the final scene where that football player is struggling, and then he goes,
Yeah.
"San Dimas High School
San Dimas
football
football
rules,"
rules.
and everybody cheers for him. That's high school in the '80s, man. That's so
Oh,
good.
that's awesome. So, yes, perhaps Socratically, although I'm nowhere near Socrates or Zach Simpson or anyone in that realm. I'm going to say two words, and I want to hear what you have to say. Or the
Mm.
first thing that comes to your mind when I say this, gore range. What do you think of when you think the gore range?
I think of a weird internet meme that you don't talk about the gore range that's become endemic that nobody talks about it, even though like
Yes.
there's maps and there's trip reports and stuff for it. Like you can talk about it, but I think of like, oh, don't talk about the gore range. Don't talk about how to get up Mount Solitude. Don't talk about how to do the Sawtooth or the Zodiac or whatever. Yeah, I do think of that. I also think, I used to in the summers, my wife and I would rent a condo in Copper Mountain, and the gore range was right out my door. I have not done a ton of gore range peaks. I've done maybe 4 or 5 peaks, but I've done pretty much every trail in the Gore Range on the east and
Ah,
west side from about 20 miles north of I-70 because my wife and I would just go hike in there with the dog, have a picnic, hike out. And so I think of just that's truly one of the most beautiful ranges in Colorado. Rugged, kind of gnarly. Love the Gore Range. I think I know where you're going here. So, Eric, what's your gore? Do you have a Gore Range peak for us?
I do have a gore range peak. It's a weird one because it's very isolated from the rest of its gore counterparts.
It's below I-70, isn't it,
It's
Eric?
the only one that's south of I-70. Yes. So in 2025, I summited Jacques Peak. And
Um,
like you said, we're not supposed to talk about the gores. Thankfully, the Climbing Coonies do, and climb13ers.com does have a route description for each gore peak. And not that you necessarily desperately need it for Jacques Peak because you're going to start at Copper, where you used to live, Zach, and you're going to go up a couple of strategic ski lifts, and
yeah, you
it's
walk up the ski hill, don't you?
that's all you do. Well, it's for the first two-thirds of it, that's all you do, and then you kind of ridge walk, traverse over to the base of the summit itself, and then you do some basic class two scrambling. But all of that is a lot of fun. Like the going in the forested ski lift areas is really cool. You have actually it's so quiet. You have a great chance to see a lot of wildlife. I saw tons of deer that day. That little boulder hopping traverse over to the base of the summit was pretty cool. You actually pass the top of a couple of black diamond ski runs, which is cool to kind of look down. And then, yeah, really basic. Like if you want to scramble, but you don't want the exposure, I think Jacques is a perfect place for you because you have to use your hands in a few spots, but you're not super exposed. And you get to the top and you can overlook Copper and the entire surrounding area. The 10 mile is just east of you. It's
Yeah.
it's a super, super pretty area. So, and of course, like you said, because no one talks about the gores, by default, no one talks about Jacques Peak, which I'm guessing is probably the easiest of all the gores. So I'm going to start off with that one for one of my most underrated peaks.
That's fun, Eric. I did not expect you to have that poll today. There's a few easy Gore Range peaks. There's Jacques is, I think, one of the easier ones. Vista Point. What?
You
Oh,
mentioned that one.
it's not named that on maps. It's named that on 14ers.com.
Okay.
There's Red Peak
Red
is
Peak too.
fairly
Yep.
easy. Mount Silverthorn is a 12er, but it's easy.
Mm.
Those are all great peaks. And like I said, love the Gore Range. The advantage of Jacques is that you start from Copper Mountain. So when you finish, you can go down and grab a burger pretty easy.
That's
So
right. Oh yeah.
I've never actually hiked Jacques. I've hiked to the top of the ski lifts there just for funsies,
Oh, okay.
but never continued on to Jacques. And I don't know what's wrong with me, why I didn't do that. I've always wondered, though, why they call it Jacques Peak. Here's my theory, and it's just completely made up on the spot. In medieval France, a commoner was called a Jacques. So, like a Jacques Bonhomme, a man of good spirit. And so, when they would have like peasant revolts, they would call them the Jacqueries, where all the
Oh,
regular
interesting.
guys rose up and like
Yeah, yeah.
tried to tried to kill the nobleman or whatever. So maybe it's named after just a kind of everyman's peak, a kind of way of saying that. And
Interesting.
as they say in history, I don't know if that's true, but it probably should be.
It
So
probably should be. Yeah. I
uh,
like that on the spot theorizing there.
I think everyone should just pass that off as gospel and be like, "Did you know that Jacques Pic was named by some people that do medieval French history, and they named it after every man?"
And you can impress people that way and say, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." And
Really?
then you
Wow.
can follow that up with, and it is okay to talk about the gores. It's not
Yeah.
like against the law or anything.
Yeah. Put all the trip reports out there. I don't care. Wow,
All
that's a good
right.
one, Eric. I like it.
Thank you. Well, what are you going to kick us off with today, Mr. Zach, with underrated peaks?
I will swing us to the aforementioned San Juans, or maybe actually the La Garritas. I'm going to go with San Luis Peak here.
Ah,
You
love
and
it. That was on my list too.
It's a peak that you and I did a few years ago. We need to redo it because we didn't see much. Um,
It's way too foggy.
I don't think anyone hates on San Luis. In my opinion, it does not get the love it deserves
Agreed.
because it's a peak that it's far away from a lot. The traditional route from Stewart Creek, I believe, which is kind of to the north. Boy, it's a pain in the butt to get there. You're driving on dirt roads. They're good dirt roads, but you're driving on dirt roads for an hour and a half, 2 hours before you get to anything there. You and I actually went from Creed, the Equity Mine trailhead, and from there, it's actually really interesting. You have to kind of go up and down. You're following the
Hmm.
Colorado Trail and you gain and lose elevation 3 or 4 times. It's kind of the last one you're like, okay, I get it now, right? Kind of harrowing. But gosh, that's a beautiful, beautiful area.
It is.
I've hiked all around it. I've hiked the Centennials around there, Stewart and Oregon, Phoenix Peak, and I've tried to do La Garita Peak. You and I have hiked San Luis. I just love the La Garitas. They're remote. I always see wildlife there.
Mm.
It's lush. It's nice volcanic soil, so there's pretty wildflowers. I just think that it does not get the love it deserves because it's not particularly technical. San Luis is from the standard route, it's a class 1 hike, and from the
Hmm.
non-standard route is a class 2 hike. And there ain't a plus in there.
No, maybe a
It's
two minus
yeah,
even.
pretty easy hikes, maybe a little strenuous, but
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful hikes. And the Lagaritas are great to look at. You have great vantage point on clear day. You can see to Uncompahgre and you can see the other direction to the Sangres
Mm.
and even to the South Saguache. So I really like San Luis, and I think that definitely merits some people going and hiking back in there. I think people just kind of do the old smash and grab. They come in, they camp out the night before, and then they hike it, and then they get out.
Yep.
But I think it's definitely worth staying down there and hiking a bunch of those. It's a lifetime goal of mine to hike all the La Garita peaks above 13. So
That's cool.
I'm about halfway there. They're not a lot, but yeah, definitely merits some attention. And I just don't think they get the love they deserve. And maybe that's good because it means that there's not as many folk down there.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think that the fact that you and I can call it underrated, even though we did it on such a foggy day and we had like no views of anything, and we still liked it enough to put
Yeah.
it on this list, that really speaks for it. I mean, the fact that, like you said, that last dip that you do going down, which I mean, it's not like Half Moon Pass kind of loss and then reascent, but it's a good dip, but you get to go down into that basin
Yeah.
that's what's southwest of
Yep.
San Luis, and then you kind of reascend and get to the summit from there. That's a really pretty area, and yeah, I agree. That's a great call. San Luis is a great one.
It was green and but kind of open. Again, I
Mhm.
like these big open tundra spaces and
Yeah,
just a beautiful spot. And like I said, I always see wildlife there, which you can't say of a lot of other places
yeah, for
these days
sure.
in Colorado. So, Eric, we've now had San Luis and Jacques Peak. You've got a couple that you wanna tell me about here, and I'm gonna then take this in a sideways direction. So, you have the floor, my friend. What are the next couple of sorely underrated peaks that we need to talk about?
The other two that I've got are in I guess you would call it the 10-mile mosquito range if you want to combine the two. So I've got one on each side. I would say one of these might get poo-pooed a tiny bit. For anyone that's familiar with Mosquito Gulch, so Mosquito Gulch, just north of Fairplay, there's this massive cirque of seven different 13ers.
Yeah.
And then if you tack on, there's Arkansas kind of comes off of like an arm off of
Hmm.
Tweedo, so then you could even consider it to be eight. If you include Arkansas, those eight mountains, there's two centennials. There's at least one, maybe even two that are kind of sort of close to being centennials. They're maybe 30, 40, 50 feet shy of being centennial. And then there's London Mountain. And I think London's kind of weird because if you go up Mosquito Pass, some people can drive it. If you have like a, I don't know, a hovercraft or something, you can drive up Mosquito Pass. Most of us have to hike up it. But as you go up, you'll eventually get to the saddle between London and Cuss. If you turn to your right, you'll have access to every other 13er on that path. But I think London, which is the only one that you can get to from if you turn left, I wonder if that one might get orphaned fairly often because it's the only one that's kind of off to the side. But to me, that was the most fun one because it's not a long hike. I don't remember
No.
exactly how long. It's, I don't know, half mile, three-quarters of a mile each
It's
way.
pretty
So
short once you're kind of near Mosquito Pass. Yeah, it's pretty quick.
exactly. It's quite quick, but right away you have to find there's a couple of large rock ribs that you kind of have to get around.
Yeah.
And then as you get closer to the summit, there's a couple of spots that get a little bit steep. When I say steep, I'm talking like still class two kind of steep,
Hmm.
but you're still like you're looking around kind of figuring out, okay, how am I going to get up this thing? And you'd have to put your hands down a few times and mild exposure. For me, that's probably worse than like I would consider it more than mild exposure, but most human beings would say, oh, that's not much. And once you get to the top, like you can see
Yeah.
all like you can look over to Pennsylvania Mountain if you want to. You can look all around Mosquito Gulch. You can look into Mosquito Gulch, which is that area is super pretty for not a ton of effort. You can have a lot of fun and experience a lot of great views from the top of London Mountain. And I think it's pretty underrated. I'd like to see, well, no, I wouldn't like to see more tip reports on it. I'd like to just do it myself. So London Mountain is on my list for underrated peaks.
Yeah, I love that. Man, you're coming at me with surprises today, Eric. I did not anticipate going to London Mountain. London Mountain's great. You and I have both done it. I think I've done it twice
Hmm.
just because I was at Mosquito Pass and I was like, I'm gonna go up this.
Yeah.
And then I went back and I was like, this is kind of fun. I'll do this one again. I really like London Mountain. A couple things there. I do like that Mosquito Gulch, and I think people probably poo-poo it because it's super accessible.
Really?
Like
Yes.
it's easily accessible from Alma Fairplay area.
Hmm.
It's got Mosquito Pass there. And another reason that I think it and other stuff in the Mosquito Range gets maybe underrated is the abundance of mining activity up there.
For
There's
sure.
there's a lot of roads. There's a lot of old buildings. My dad was actually part of a working gold and silver mine on London Mountain in the 1980s.
Really?
Yeah, he was working up there. And I actually have a couple of childhood memories of driving his old beat up Ford F-250 halfway up Mosquito Pass and stuff. So,
Wow.
if you're into like old mining history and stuff, that's a cool area.
It
I think
is. Yep.
the Coors Corporation still owns the mineral rights up there.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of cool history up there. There's actually to the east of London Mountain, there was a plane crash, like a little Piper plane that crashed up there in like the 90s, I
You
believe.
mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually wandered around up there one time and found part of the old wreckage for it. Um,
Oh, wow.
so that's a cool area. There's a lot to commend that, and the views up there are great. So
Yeah.
I'm digging London Mountain. I have some things I'm holding back here, Eric, but
Yeah.
we'll let you move on now. So you did a Mosquito Peak. Now, do you have a 10-mile peak that you wanted to talk about?
We do have a 10 mile. And this one, if London and that area are underrated because they get poo-pooed, I think this last one is underrated because no one talks about it. Even though if you go on 14ers.com, you'll find four different routes to get to the top of this one. But that's mostly because it's really, really close to Crystal Peak. So Crystal, Pacific, Atlantic, a trio of Centennials. We've talked about them before.
Hmm.
You and I have both done all three of them. You did all three of them in one day. I had to break it up a little bit, but Mayflower Gulch might be my favorite part of the whole state. And
Oh yeah.
even though, I mean, it's, the San Juans are just, they're gorgeous. And there's a number of areas in the San Juans I have not explored yet. That Mayflower Gulch area is just dynamite. And the day that I summited Crystal Peak, which was in 2024, I had intentions of going down to do Pacific and Atlantic as well, the way you had. And I looked at Pacific and I said, I don't think so. That's not going to happen today. And so I kind of called an audible and decided to go after another peak and then come back. And then I went after peak 10 in Breckenridge and then came back and descended. But that peak in the middle is called Father Dyer Peak
Yeah.
and very nondescript. I looked it up on Lists of John. It only has 119 feet of prominence. I'm sorry, 116 feet of prominence.
Oh.
So I would call it underrated, partially because it's very unranked. There's no way that it's going to make its way. Like the Climbing Coonies don't even list it because it's so unranked. But I don't know if I've ever had so much fun doing a class two ridge walk like that. You're slowly gaining going up there and you're kind of sort of rock hopping, but you've got just enough exposure on each side to make you feel like alive, but not to where you're feeling like you're gonna die if you slip and fall.
Or
But it was
Dyer.
or or dire or diest.
Yeah.
The most fun aspect of Father Dyer, the reason I would consider it to be underrated, I mean, I don't ever hear anyone talking about it, but I think part of the reason why is because it's really just your standard ridge walk. But to me, it was a fun ridge walk. You also have a lot of different ways to do it. If you want to do it through Mount Helen, you can do that. If you want to do it straight from its southeast ridge, you can do that. Or if you want to do it through Crystal, there's a lot of options for it. But I really enjoyed it. And I guess I'm a little surprised that I don't hear more people talking about it. Maybe it's the fact that it is your standard class two, but I had a lot of fun on it. So to me, I would add Father Dyer to the list of underrated peaks. So have you
Well,
done that one, Zach?
I haven't, Eric. And I think that may be because I think you did it in a kind of unorthodox way.
Yeah, that's probably putting it nicely.
I'm, I'm not trying to throw shade at the way you did
No,
it.
not at all.
But I think the way you did it, coming from Crystal like you did, most people are going to try to do it from Mount Helen. And that's a class three. And a lot of people talk about that link up between Mount Helen and Father Dyer as a really great like introduction to class, like an extended class three
Mhm.
kind of engagement with a ridge where the commitment's not severe, the exposure's not severe, but you're having to do a lot of class three moves in for a while. So I actually haven't done it. I've done Crystal, I've done Peak 10. One time, me and my dog Lacey were kind of on the ridge in between Crystal and Father Dyer and just didn't go
Mm.
over there. But I think that's a great one. That area around there, like Mohawk Lakes and all the little
Yeah.
lakes around there and stuff, that's a beautiful area. Again, if there wasn't a ski area there, I think a lot of people would be like, it's a really cool kind of primitive area. That's a great one, and I think a lot commends it for the way you talked about it. It sounds like it's just a fun hike, like a really engaged, sustained, fun and enjoyable hike, even though it's not what you planned that day, Eric.
For sure. Inaudible on that one. So, but I think for your last two, Zach, there's no audible on this one. You know where you're going with two favorite underrated, or are they your two favorite, or are they one of them would
One of
be?
these is being offered as kind of a hot take. I'm going to throw that out there. I'll go with the one that's a more of a lukewarm take, and it's right next to our friend Father Dyer. It's Quandary. I think Quandary is it's hiked a lot. I think it may be one of the most hiked peaks in all of Colorado. They've had to implement the new shuttle system because of that level of overuse. I imagine though, when I think of Quandary Peak, I think if that wasn't next to, now this is a huge if, right? But if it wasn't next to a town and got used as much as it did, dang, that's a good peak. It's got a great approach. It's got two routes. It's got one really hard one, class three West Ridge, and then the class one East Ridge route, the standard so-called standard route. But that standard route, even that's a great hike. Amazing views to the Front Range, to the Sawatch, to over to Holy Cross, up and down the 10 Mile and Mosquito Range, up to the range we shall not name, the Gore Range. It's just a really stunning hike, and there's a lot to speak for it in terms of like the views, but also it's pretty easy. Like you get up there and you just kind of start scampering, and in relatively short period of time, you're above timberline. It's an easy hike. I like it for all those reasons. And I think people are like, oh, it's an easy hike, but easy hikes are worthwhile too. So I think that one gets underrated just because it's so common. Banal would be the fun word for that, but there should be a place for that too. So,
Agreed. And
uh,
if you get to have your can kicked by the goats up there, all the more fun. I got really close to a baby goat. I think that's the first time I ever got that close to any kind of wildlife. So I really enjoyed Quandary.
yeah, Quandary's great peak. That's my more lukewarm one, but I'll get to my absolute hottest take of the year here. And
It's
probably
a good one.
some people are going to be like, why are you even saying this? The first peak I thought of as underrated when I came to it was Mount Sherman. I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that are like, seriously, Mount Sherman? You're you're going to go underdog status for that one. It is without a doubt not looked upon as kindly. A lot of people kind of laugh at it. There's an old trip report on 14ers.com where some guys like
Yes.
donned like Himalayan expedition gear and crampons, and they did it, and they like wrote the whole like deadpan seriously wrote up a whole trip report on this. Like they called it Sherma Pangma.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. That's right.
that's a great one. I think a lot of people hate on Sherman, and it's for the same reason they might hate on London Mountain. A lot of old mine activity. There's a lot of roads up there. There's nothing technical about it. Especially if you go the standard route from the east side, there's a bunch of old roads, a bunch of
Mhm.
trails. If you go from the west side, there's one kind of main route that even has some trail. Like that's pretty darn easy. It is a class one all the way. Um, but I am just not going to sit here and let a poor mountain, it's not its fault that miners found stuff up there. And if you're into mining history, that's a cool area.
Mm.
You could go get Gemini and Dyer Peaks,
Yep.
both Centennial Peaks, just right next to it. I think if you're going to do a fun day, make a day of it and get up there. Gemini, Dyer, Sherman, and Peerless are
Yep.
that's a nice quartet of peaks you can kind of, or Sheridan, you can kind of do 4 or 5 peaks all on its own and you get to spend a lot of time up high. The views are fantastic. The rock is easy to walk on. It's actually really cool rock. There's a lot of ore, a lot of molybdenum and different things in there. I like Sherman. I've had 2 enjoyable days going up and down Sherman. It can get a little windy there, but
For sure.
part of me is like, I'll go back to our mantra, you never have a bad day in the mountains.
There you go.
And Sherman's not the most wild of places. I get this, but you could still have a good day up there, and you could still have a day where there's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
The first time I did Sherman was like 2010 on maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Had the mountain to myself,
Yep.
and it was lovely. And I thought, wow, what's the deal? Like everybody kind of talks about this like it's just overrun, and I'm sure on a holiday weekend that place is bumping.
Yeah.
But on a Tuesday in September, if you manage to get a day off, like Eric does sometimes, that's a good spot to be. And when
There
I
you
went
go.
back and did Gemini and Dyer, it was great. I'm giving my love to Sherman. What do you have to say, Eric?
I'm good with Sherman too. Yeah, I think tacked that one in 2014 or something like that. And yeah, it was during the week for me too. I got There was a lady that was a little older than me that got to the top before I did, but otherwise, there was no one else up there. It was foggy and windy, like you said, but felt good by the time I got up there. Tacked down Sheridan afterwards. That was a fun hike. I really enjoyed Sheridan. That was my
Yeah.
first 13er I ever did. And
Yep.
that was a great introduction to 13ers, I think. Yeah, really pretty area. I mean, I couldn't see it that day, but I've seen it in subsequent times when it wasn't so quite as windy up there. But yeah, if you pick the right day, you'll probably have it mostly to yourself. You've got, like you said, Gemini, Dyer. Going from Dyer to West Dyer might be a little on the sketchy side, but there's plenty of other extra credits, as Jerry Roach would say, in that
Mm-hmm.
area. And Sherman by itself, I think that's a fun walk up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It was fun seeing kind of the little checkerboard trail sections
Yeah.
on the way up from there. But yeah, I'm good with Sherman. I like that pick.
When I hike places like that, I imagine it wasn't hiking that brought the first people up to the top of that mountain. Now, that first, and now I'm sure there were Utes or maybe other mountain tribes, maybe Arapaho that would have gone to the top of Sherman. But those hard scrabble men that built those roads and stuff, it wasn't because they loved it. It's because they were trying to scrap together a living. And some part of me, when I go to places like that, I imagine the desperation of people going to a place like that and trying to
Hmm.
make a living. It takes me back in time. And
Hmm.
so, most of us are able to hike these places and do so in our very kind of bougie way where we drive in and hike and then we go home because other people have done that kind of. There's a road close to Sherman because people built those roads, and there's
Yep.
trails because people cut those old road grades up there, or there's old rail grades even. So it's interesting in that regard, but it's also just a mountain and they're beautiful. And I just want to say, this is my bigger point. I think the Mosquito Range does not get enough love. I think because of its old mining history, because it's
Hmm.
easy, because the hardest route in all of the Mosquito Range is, I think, Wheeler Peak, and it's a class
Probably
three.
Wheeler. Yeah.
And I think it's a vastly underrated range, but I have seen more wildlife in the Mosquito Range than I have my past 20 hikes in the Sawatch.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's just as wild as some other places in Colorado, and the views are great. And I think there's a place for easy hiking too. And the Mosquito Range offers a fair amount of that.
For sure. Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, we talked about Mosquito Gulch. We talked about in earlier episodes the Buffalo Peaks,
Yeah.
and all of the 10-mile discussions we've had. Like those areas are just they're gorgeous
Hmm.
and they're not difficult to get to. There's generally a road to get fairly close to all of those trailheads. Yeah, I've seen plenty of deer and of course your requisite marmots and pikas up there. Um, yeah, it's funny that the mosquitoes in the 10 miles don't get talked about much, but I mean, probably part of that has to do with the fact that when we talk about the mountains, most often we're talking about the 14ers, and
Hmm.
they are in those areas, they are Quandary, Sherman, and the Decalibron, and there's just not as much challenge there. But to your point, hey, if I can put in very little effort and get really high reward, I don't know why more people don't sign up for that.
Yeah, maybe it's because it's not hardcore enough. There's a place for, yeah, not being hardcore sometimes. Like, there's been plenty of moments in the hundreds of 13ers I've hiked where I'm like just walking straight up a ridge line. I'm like, dang, am I doing this again? And, there's a place I think for just going to a mountain that's pretty and not having to put in a lot of effort and getting rewarded with incredible views, getting to see all around and getting to kind of, I don't know, take your time, go check out some old mine ruins and yeah, go knock out a 13er if you want to. That's all good. There's plenty of places like that elsewhere too. I know the San Juans have some spots like that, especially near Cinnamon Pass and on the Alpine Loop. But yeah, that's what I like about them. And I've always had a soft spot for the Mosquito Peaks because they're fun, they're easy, they're good for late season or early season hikes in terms of access and difficulty. And that's all good.
That is good. And I had no idea. So you'd mentioned that your dad had done had been involved in some mining activity. I had no idea he was on London Mountain. And so you mentioned you have some memories there. Had you spent any time as a kid with him specifically on London Mountain or in that general area?
Yeah, on the side of it, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't remember going up anything. But I'm sure like he would just let me go tool around. He would just let me go
Oh, wow.
goof off, and who knows what I wandered up then.
Yeah.
I probably didn't get too far. I probably didn't go to the top of anything, but I probably wandered around those basins a little bit because he was working out of Leadville for a number of years. So
Okay.
yeah, there were active mine sites there through the 80s when commodity prices were a little higher. Yeah, those were really neat areas for me to kind of explore in. I explored a lot around Steamboat when I was a kid near Hans
Oh,
Peak.
yeah.
I remember my dad doing some work there. I remember my dad doing some work near Gunnison. He would drag me along every once in a while, but also at the same time, there's only so much time you want to sit in a truck. So,
Going over
uh,
those bumpy
you're
roads
going,
on the way
oh,
up.
but yeah, and believe me, the suspension on a Ford F-250 back in the day wasn't exactly, it wasn't like a Coupe de Ville. It was
Yeah.
pretty buckboard and tight. So,
Oh, gosh. Oh, well, so maybe you've, without even remembering or knowing it, maybe you've summited a few 13ers as a kid, huh?
maybe I'll just, just go to my 14ers.com page and just throw a couple rando 13er summits on there just for fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure no one
Art?
will have any issues with that,
No, that's it. No controversy there at all.
just for the sake of charity. Um, maybe that's part of why I like that area too, is I have some memories embedded in it.
For sure.
I want to say one last thing. There is an underrated area, but I'm not going to say what it is on this episode. And we're
Oh,
gonna we're gonna devote a couple episodes to this area
you're gonna tease
in
this now?
in the future, and maybe in a year or two. Like maybe not even this year. I've
Oh, wow.
I've got an area I've been exploring that I really really like, and it's special, but it's not underrated. It's nothing as well. So, and for me, and it's not New Mexico, because for me that would be like I could just do a whole bunch of New Mexico episodes and be like, yeah, it's underrated because it is. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so just want to tease that out there. Just want to sprinkle that in.
This is in Colorado?
It is, yeah. I'll tell you when we stop recording, Eric.
Okay,
So
I'm very intrigued. That's quite a tease there, Zach. But in the next year, like you can't commit to maybe the next 3 or 4 episodes to
I
sharing more about this?
I've got to go back and do a couple more expeditions there because I want to be able to give trip reports. I want to be able to talk
Okay.
about a couple places intelligently. So,
All right. All right.
well, Eric, we've come to the end of our most underrated peaks. Were we to show the big board, I think it would be something like Sherman as probably the hottest of hot takes. And then after that, maybe London might be your hot take. Then Father Dyer Quandary, Jock, San Luis, Half Peak. That's a good list. I think I would offer that would be a really fun, like week to 10-day trip of just hiking cool peaks.
For sure.
So kind of go through the center part of the state and down to the San
Hmm.
Juans. So
Yeah.
there are obviously way more underrated peaks that we didn't get to talk about today. Numerous 13ers that don't get much, if any, love at all. I'm always finding new places in the state, always going up to new areas and being like, holy moly, I didn't know that this was this great.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
continually, I am reminded of the fact that I could spend a whole life exploring the state and never get it done.
Yep. Well, to get to your point earlier, there's never a bad day in the mountains. So if you're out there somewhere, whether it's a place you've enjoyed before or whether you're exploring a new place, you're likely to have fun and pull some great memories out of that.
Yeah, hopefully not get bit by mosquitoes while you're doing it. Eric, if anyone wants to get a hold of us, how can they do that?
Well, if anyone else has thoughts on what they think are underrated peaks or ones that they don't think get enough love, we'd love to hear about that at our email address, which is greensandbluespodcast@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on our website, which is greensandbluespodcast.podbean.com, where you can get to our Facebook page and make comments at us. You can access our YouTube channel and watch silly videos of us finding some of these underrated places, or you can leave us a voicemail from your computer. So, all of those ways are great ways to get a hold of us, and we love hearing from you.
We thank you guys so much for spending your time driving to the trailhead or commuting around and listening to us. It's always appreciated. We hope that everybody's enjoying the sunny summer hiking season, and we'll be back in a couple more weeks.